colleagues, Ms. Sanchita Mishra, distinguished participants, fellow climate advocates. It's both a privilege and a profound responsibility to stand before you today, not merely as Iceland's ambassador to India, but as someone who has witnessed firsthand how the intersection of gender equality and climate action can transform our collective future. I want to thank you, Ms. Sanchita, for this invitation. Your leadership through WICCI's Climate Action Council embodies precisely the kind of vision we need, one that refuses to see gender equality and climate responsibility as a separate battles, but rather as intertwined journeys towards a more just and sustainable world. Colleagues, let me take you back to a moment in Iceland's history that fundamentally altered our nation's trajectory. In 1980, my country elected Vigdís Finnbogadóttir as a president, the world's first democratically elected female head of state. This was not simply a symbolic victory, it was a declaration that Iceland would chart a different course, one where gender would not determine destiny. But Vigdís's election didn't happen in a vacuum. It emerged from decades of women's activism, from the legendary 1975 Women's Day off, when 90% of Iceland's women went on strike, bringing the nation to a standstill and forcing society to recognize the invisible labor that held everything together. That single day of absence made visible what we had always been there, the essential undervalued contribution of women to every aspect of our economy and society. From that foundation, Iceland built systematically. Today, we have mandatory equal pay certificate. We have gender quotas on corporate boards, and perhaps most importantly, one of the world's most progressive parental leave systems that recognizes the equality begins at home, in those earliest moments of family formation, when fathers have equal responsibility and opportunity to nurture their children. We break cycles of inequality that have persisted for generations. These policies didn't just improve metrics on gender equality indices, they fundamentally transformed our economy, our innovation capacity, and our approach to every challenge we face, including the existential crisis of climate change. Over the past decade, I've had the honor of working at the front lines of global climate action. I was a part of the team negotiating the Paris Agreement in 2015, that extraordinary moment when 195 nations came together to acknowledge our shared vulnerability and shared responsibility. I spent nearly 6 years with UN's Sustainable Energy for All initiative, and I have served as Iceland's Special Envoy for Climate. Through these experiences, one truth has become undeniable. Climate change is not gender neutral. It amplifies existing inequalities with devastating precision. According to some estimates, women and girls comprise of 80% of people displaced by climate-related disasters. In energy-poor communities, women spend countless hours collecting fuel and water, time stolen from education, entrepreneurship, and participation in decision-making. When crops fail due to drought, women and children are the first to go hungry. When families face economic stress from climate impact, girls are the first to be pulled out of school. Yet here is the bitter irony. While women bear the harshest consequences of climate change, they remain largely excluded from climate leadership and climate finance. Fewer than 15% of environmental ministers globally are women. Women-led enterprises receive less than 2% of climate finance. In rural agricultural settings, women own less than 20% of the world's land, despite producing up to 80% of food in developing countries. This is not just unjust, it is strategically catastrophic. We are fighting the defining challenge of our time with half our population sidelined. Think about that. When world leaders gathered at the United Nations General Assembly in 2015, we made a sacred promise. the Sustainable Development Goals with a core commitment to leave no one behind. Two of these goals are particularly critical to the conversation we're having today. SDG 7, ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable and modern energy for all, is the foundation upon which all other development rests. Energy is not just about electricity, it's about dignity, it's about opportunity and choice. It's about a girl who can study after the sunset. It's about a woman entrepreneur who can refrigerate her products and access markets. It's about healthcare clinic that can store vaccines and save lives. Yet, today, approximately 685 million people still lack access to electricity and 2.6 million lack clean cooking facilities. The majority of those at the end of this energy poverty line are women and children, suffering from indoor air pollution, time poverty, and curtailed opportunities. SDG 17, Partnership for the Goal, reminds us that no nation, no organization, no individual can solve these challenges alone. We need collaborative frameworks that bridge government, private sector, civil society, and communities. We need partnerships that are genuinely inclusive, that bring women to the table, not as beneficiaries, but as architects of solutions. In my work with Sustainable Energy for All, I saw repeatedly how women entrepreneurs, when given access to capital and capacity building, created renewable energy solutions perfectly adapted to their community's needs. Solar-powered milk chillers for dairy cooperatives, clean cook stoves that reduce fuel costs and respiratory illnesses, microgrids that power women-led businesses. These weren't just climate solutions, they were engines of economic transformation and gender equality. The climate economy represents a once-in-a-generation opportunity to restructure not just our energy systems, but our economic systems. The transition to low-carbon futures will create millions of jobs, generate trillions in investments, and spawn entirely new industries. The question is, will this transition replicate the gender imbalances of the fossil fuel era, or will we intentionally design it to be inclusive and equitable? In industries, we must actively work to break down barriers that have historically excluded women from male-dominated sectors like renewable energy, engineering, and construction. This means everything from targeted STEM education for girls to workplace policies that support work-life balance to addressing harassment and discrimination that drives women out of these fields. In rural settings where the majority of the world's energy poor live, we must recognize women not as passive recipients of aid, but as economic agents and innovators. Women in rural communities already manage complex natural resource systems. They understand local ecosystems, community needs, and practical constraints in ways that external experts often miss. When we provide them with access to appropriate technologies and finance, they become powerful drivers of sustainable development. But here's where we constantly fail: finance. The global climate finance architecture is designed in ways that systematically exclude women entrepreneurs. Large-scale institutional investors want proven track records, substantial collateral, and business models that fit conventional templates. Women-led enterprises, particularly in developing countries, rarely meet these criteria, not because their ideas lack merit, but because the system wasn't designed with them in mind. We need dedicated financing mechanisms that understand and address these barriers, blended finance structures that reduce risk, patient capital willing to invest in long-term social and environmental returns, capacity building that helps women entrepreneurs navigate complex financial systems, and fundamentally, we need more women in decision-making positions within the financial institution and climate funds. Iceland stands ready to partner in this transformation. Our experience has taught us that investment in gender equality generates extraordinary returns, not in justice, but innovation, economic growth, and societal resilience. Through our development cooperation, we prioritize projects that advance both sustainable energy and gender equality. We share our learnings, including our mistakes and ongoing challenges, because genuine partnership requires honesty about what works and what doesn't. But I want to be clear. Iceland does not have all the answers. We are a small nation with unique circumstances. What we can offer is willingness to learn, to experiment, and to stand among partners like WICCI in advancing this crucial agenda. Personally, I envision several areas where collaboration could flourish. Knowledge exchange between women entrepreneurs in clean energy across our countries could foster peer learning, mentorship, and mutual inspiration that transcends borders. Innovative financing approaches might emerge through dialogue between Icelandic experience and Indian institutions working with women-led climate enterprises. Documenting and amplifying success stories, very important, could help build compelling narrative that demonstrate the value of investing in women climate entrepreneurs, shifting the mindset among investors and policymakers. Engaging men as allies in this transformation remains essential. In Iceland, our progress on gender equality accelerated when we framed it not as a zero-sum game, but as an expansion of opportunity and well-being for everyone. Advocacy effort at the international forum, whether it's the COP meeting, in G20 discussions, or through bilateral diplomacy, that can continue to elevate the profile of gender-responsive climate actions. Ms. Sanchita, you wrote in your invitation that this webinar is meant to be a gathering of voices that carry wisdom, resilience, and vision. The stories seen not as performances, but as living narrative, where hard-won lessons, ethical choices, and bold innovation converge to shape the idea of low-carbon future. That phrase resonates deeply with me, living narratives, because that's what this climate transition must be, not a technical exercise in deploying technologies and mobilizing finance, but a human story of transformation, of confronting difficult truths, of making ethical choices about who we want to be as species. The hard-won lessons from my decade in climate work can be summarized simply: solutions that exclude the perspective and leadership of women are incomplete solutions. Investment that bypass women entrepreneurs are missed opportunities. Policies that fail to address gender dimensions of climate vulnerability are inadequate policies. The ethical choice before us is equally clear. We can replicate in the climate economy the same extractive, exclusive patterns that create our current crisis, or we can intentionally build something different. An economy that is regenerative, inclusive, and just. The bold innovation required is not primarily technological, though we need that of course too. The boldest innovation is social and political. The courage to restructure power and to redistribute resources, to reimagine who leads and who benefits. Friends, we stand at a pivotal point. The climate crisis accelerates, but so too does our capacity to respond. The tools, the technologies, and financial resources exist to build a low-carbon future. What we need now is political will to deploy them equitably. For the women entrepreneurs in this web, in India, across Asia, and around the world, I want you to know that your work matters immeasurably. Every clean energy solution you develop, every sustainable enterprise you build, every barrier you break through creates pathways for others to follow. You are not just building businesses, you are building the future. For the allies and supporters here, the policymakers, investors, civil society leaders, I challenge you to move beyond good intentions to concrete action. Review your investment portfolios. What percentage goes to women-led enterprises? Examine your organizations. Are women in decision-making roles? Question your assumptions. Whose voice are missing from your strategy discussions? For my fellow diplomats and government representatives, we have a special responsibility to ensure that our national climate commitment and our international climate finance genuinely advances gender equality. Let's make sure that gender is not merely mentioned, in the preambles of our climate policies, but is woven throughout implementation. The journey toward equality and climate sustainability is not a sprint. It's a multi-generational marathon. Iceland has been running this race for decades, and we have made progress, but we are far from finished, and we cannot succeed alone. The invitation Ms. Ancita extends speaks of women standing shoulder to shoulder, supported by allies and leaders, blending strength and imagination to a cause that is larger than each of us, yet dependent on all of us. That is the spirit I carry from Iceland to this conversation today. As an ally committed to standing alongside you in this journey, together we work toward a destination not because any of us arrive, but because we share common purpose. That destination is a world where no Earth's potential is limited by her gender, where no community is left in energy poverty, where no nation faces climate catastrophe alone. That world is possible, but it will not emerge from business as usual. It requires the kind of bold, collaborative, gender-responsive leadership that organizations like WICCI embody. It requires each of us to contribute our wisdom, our resources, our courage. Iceland is ready to be a partner in this essential work. Let's shape together the low-carbon future our children deserve, a future that is not only sustainable, but equitable, not only innovative, but inclusive, not only prosperous, but just. Thank you for creating the space for dialogue. Thank you all for your commitment to this crucial cause, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of this collective journey towards a better future. As we say in Icelandic, thank you.